Okay, can we start the projection? There is no voice.
Portuguese, Greek, English, Norwegian, and Swedish. We've got the air team, helicopter is Lithuania.
Taka próbowałem jakąś łódkę. Nic nie widać, ale to łódka rybacka.
I think it was 7 boats. 7 boats in a medium with 40-30% inboard. Most of them Syrian and some of them from Africa.
Take a picture, it's better for you. We rescued 823 babies and children and 678 women.
Lesbos to trzecia co do wielkości grecka wyspa, liczy 86 000 mieszkańców. To miejsce stało się centrum kryzysu uchodźczego. W 2015 roku do Grecji przypłynęło ponad 847 000 uchodźców i imigrantów. Ponad połowa z nich przypłynęła na Lesbos, czego śladem są góry pozostawionych kamizelek ratunkowych. Niewielka społeczność wyspy wykazała się niespotykaną solidarnością z uchodźcami, udowadniając, że nawet w trudnych warunkach można współczuć i bezinteresownie nieść pomoc potrzebującym.
Na Lesbos są 3 główne obozy dla uchodźców: Pikpa, Karatepe i Moria. Uchodźców, którzy przypłyną na Lesbos, przewozi się do Morii, największego obozu na wyspie. Działa tu punkt rejestracyjny, tu składa się podania o azyl.
Jesteśmy cały czas przed Morią, niestety nie możemy wejść do środka, dlatego że nie wpuszczają tam w ogóle dziennikarzy. Ala właśnie schodzi z drzewa. Próbowałyśmy zobaczyć jak najwięcej środka.
Obóz Moria był kiedyś obozem tranzytowym, a potem stał się obozem zamkniętym. Od 6 tygodni ludzie, którzy są w Morii, po zarejestrowaniu mogą swobodnie poruszać się po całej wyspie.
Morią zarządzają władze państwowe i unijne. Obóz jest przeludniony. Brakuje żywności, sanitariatów.
How long are you on Lesbos?
3 months.
3 months already.
Quetta.
They started the journey from a city called Quetta from Pakistan. They went through that city through smugglers, of course, in the trucks or in the they really literally hit them very bad on bad manners like sticks and whatever you can imagine. A certain amount to pay. Some people ask 500, some people have thousands.
From Daraa city, Syria. I am coming from Turkey. I am in Turkey 1 year. Problem for my country, for Turkey system, for paper.
I'm Yazidi. We have a different religion, like Yazidi religion, minority. We're not Christian, we're not Muslim. We're from north of the Iraq, Yazidi. All them is Islamic people from Syria, from Iraq. This is black, all this ISIS. They kill in the first day 1,500 people from my religion. Until this moment, 2 years, like to you, because they killed the Yazidis. In this month, they born 90 Yazidi girls by the fire.
Many million people killed, finished, died. Peace, inshallah, came. But I don't know what time.
What's your name?
My name is Joseph. Hi. I'm from Eritrea. We did a demonstration about to be heard in Moria camp. So till now we don't know what's going on. They don't want to
hear from us, or I ask for to meet the asylum, the boss. Moria is a mess. It's a big mess.
Food they give to us, it doesn't give strength to us. In our tent, inside there are 13 people who sleep on the ground, not proper bed. Because of food, because of clothes, washroom also. But now it is peace.
I'm just studying microbiology in Iran, and now I have MA, and I want to go to Germany for continuing my studying and just get PhD. In my eyes, all the European people, they are really kind with the refugees.
I want to save my life from the terrorists in Pakistan. My family put this on my arm for my good luck.
W Karatepe, drugim co do wielkości obozie, mieszka około 700 uchodźców. To głównie rodziny, w większości z Syrii. Obozem zarządzają lokalne władze wyspy.
I will be back here. I can't go home just and forget everything I saw here. A man, it's 13 years, crying because my fiancé, the ISIS killed her because of me. He was a journalist here. You can't do anything because they lose the hope.
But I hope Holland. I don't know why.
You want to go to Holland?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes crochet, wood. Sometimes crochet wood with. They're saying, wait. We want to see when will the border.
نوعا ما جيدة.
So you just press a button, hold it, and then you turn it like this, and you can have yourself.
Now I'm trying to use Snapchat camera for these journalists, and tomorrow they are invited to celebrate with us.
Today is our Eid, after Ramadan month, we have a special day. The Ramadan month is a special month for the Muslim people. This month, all the Muslim people don't eat anything from the morning till night.
My name is Aisha, I'm 30 years old, and I'm here with Amal Foundation 12 days now. We did an auction in Belgium with cupcakes and cakes, and all the money we saved, we bring it here to Lesbos to help the people.
Right now we're going to make new meal packages for the evening, the distribution of 6:30 p.m., 7 p.m. Again, my Pakistani Greek brother. My name is Nakash. We are AF. We distribute food packages. We cook food in Lesbos since the 15th of June.
Nakash nie ma pozwolenia oficjalnego na rozdawanie jedzenia. Robi to po uzgodnieniu z policją w pewnych wybranych przez siebie punktach.
I'll tell him the sister is in the back, so you'll get the bags from the sister, and I will have to stop as well. So we will go a little closer to Moria camp, but we don't take the risk anymore. Because one day what happened, are illegal, and some of them aren't illegal. But 90% is illegal because they came to the boats from Turkey. He's my voice within the refugees. He tells them where to come and how many packages I have. No papers with him, and at the moment he doesn't get into the recognition to get an interview registered. This is the paper he got from 2 March. He's number 398.
Okay.
So 2 March 2016 he entered. Allah Data. Umar 65. Umar 65. He's 80, 65. He's Allah Data.
I am Stratis Karabasis. I am the owner of this place, this coffee shop. We have so many refugees here. Stay here all day, all night. Has needs, very much needs. For a hospital, for doctors, for medicine.
My mother is 80 years old. She's an old lady, she's a good Christian, she goes to church, she's afraid of the Muslims. So many Muslims with too many children, they will conquer us. But then she feels pity for them and she gives them olive oil, fruits, she cooks for them.
You can't understand it if you don't live it. You have to live it and to understand it.
What I will say to my grandchildren, to my children, the refugee crisis and the economic crisis of Greece.
School of life. I feel like believe me.
What's there?
We're about to swim.
To swim.
Yes.
Thank you. Can I invite the panelists to me? So welcome again. We are totally running out of time, but I hope we will manage to discuss everything. And for the beginning, I would like to change a little bit the strategy because I think it will be much better if you will be much more involved in the discussion. So maybe let's do this, that after our talk, if you will have a question, then one person asking the question and we are answering it, because I think it's much better, in my opinion, that way. So the topic of our panel is welcoming the other refugees and immigrants. My name is Alexandra Hirschfeld. I am a philosopher, journalist, and artist. And we all know that Europe, among many other problems, is facing the need of solving the refugee crisis. We all know that migration won't stop, and the number of people searching for their new homes will increase all the time. People will continue to travel, they will continue to be displaced, and we need to find rational, realistic ways of managing this. And in my opinion, it should be not based on the old logic of humanitarian assistance, not based on logic of charity, but building on the opportunities offered by globalization, markets, and mobility. And I hope that through our discussion, we will manage to find any kind of a solution. And as I said, we all need to wake up to this challenge. So maybe now I would like to present our panelists. So I will start with Karolina. Karolina Sulich, she's an artist, curator, and co-creator of the Polish Snapchat reportage from Lesbos refugee camps that we just saw. And it was created for the Polish newspaper Gazeta Wyborcza. Welcome. And then it's Marta Bogdańska. She's a Polish humanitarian photographer and culture manager, living and working between Beirut, Lebanon, and Warsaw. And she's the author of Exilium, a narrative photography project with Syrian refugees in Lebanon, which part of this project we can see and admire on the stage. So probably you all have seen the photos, yeah? Welcome also Majid Tinavi, who was born in Syria. In 2012, he received a degree in theology. He's an Arabic language editor and proofreader. And he, what's the most important in our discussion, he's the board member of the Integration Committee for Immigrants and Refugees, which was launched by the president of Gdańsk in 2016. And also Nikos Gautas, who is representing Antigone Thessaloniki, am I right? Yes. This is the Information and Documentation Center on Racism, Ecology, Peace and Nonviolence, through which you, as I understand, has a substantial practical experience from refugee camp in Greece. We just saw the film that actually was made by me and Karolina, and we did it for Gazeta Wyborcza. So if it's okay, I will start with a question to Karolina regarding this film. This film, as you have seen, it's made of Snapchat shots. Karolina, can you tell me, like from your perspective, what is the main benefits in using Snapchat? Can you imagine to do this story with a different medium? And what is so special about Snapchatting in this context, like in the context of refugee crisis? Why actually we decided to choose that kind of a medium?
At that point, Snapchat was, I think, like in terms of applications and these tools, everything changes very rapidly. So at that point, it was pretty wide used application by young people, and because we wanted to address a younger audience in Poland, we chose this way of making a narration. And I think the benefit of it was that we were less threatening than the people with big cameras for people with whom we interacted, because we only have cell phones. So there was less tension and people acted more naturally and more openly. And also I think it isn't like we cannot see in this movie because it is edited and it is made to be 12 minutes and to have some kind of like solid narration, but basically we were like the stories when they were live and they were like they could be seen daily. There was like a lot of mistakes and a lot of things that made it more immediate experience, more, I believe, more engaging and more like just live.
Maybe it's
not very edited. So like I think it was also like one of the issues that we chose it, and one of the issues why it was slightly different and was more likely to support the aims that we wanted to achieve through that. But still, like the audience we were using the Gazeta Wyborcza Snapchat account, and the audience there is not enormous. So it was like around 1,000 people watching in daily. So it's not like and it was more or less like this number. So
yeah,
it wasn't a big audience.
It is worth to underline that the film was not the first issue that we did. So maybe just tell about the reportage that we did, because we saw the film, but we actually was not doing the film on the first purpose there. We are just reporting every day.
I just said it. Like we were like every day we were like going and covering a different aspect of the life of Lesbos a year after the peak of the crisis. So we went there in 2016, whereas in 2015 it was like this. All of the media was the narration, like widespread narration about refugee crisis, and the reason why we did it is also because I personally was super surrounded by very biased and very politicized narrations from like right-wing perspective newspapers and left-wing, which were like
using the refugee crisis issue to fuel their political stand, and fuel their not campaigning, because that was not a time of campaigning, but fueling their agenda. And it was like really, like when you were like reading like the newspaper stories, it was super biased, and right side was like, of course, referring to fear and like spreading dreadful stories about refugees, whereas leftists were like doing more like, you know, sugar-colored picture, and there was like nothing in between. And that, for example, like, and when you receive those kind of messages, you know that's not the picture. That the picture is far more complex, and it cannot be flattened so easily. And so that was the reasons. So every day we were like somewhere like else on Lesbos. For example, we cannot see it there, but that was actually a very important and interesting thing that we saw there. There was like a conference at this time by accident happening, and it was a European conference to resolve refugee crisis. But there were like very little refugees represented on this conference, and they had they were lacking translators, but they have like refugee in the camps that they could approach and somehow engage. And I was talking to Mesa, a refugee. At that time, she was not staying anymore, but she was in Karatepe, this less strict camp, and she told me that she just like by chance knew about it, this conference, and that's why she came. But that was really interesting issue to observe, that we're talking about refugee crisis, but then the people there, that they don't have the floor to speak up for themselves. So
thank you very much. And I have a question to Majet. Integration Committee for Immigrants and Refugees, this is a very fresh committee. It was established 1 year ago. Can you just tell us briefly what exactly is the purpose of this Integration Committee? What in practice did you manage to organize or adopt during the last year?
Sure. Well, before I start, tell you the objective of our Board of Integration of Immigrants in Gdansk, let me just demonstrate the spirit of this committee, which really summarized by Adamovich Paweł, the city mayor here in Gdansk, when he said, the principle of solidarity is embedded in Gdansk heritage and form the basis for building an open and inclusive society, ensuring that citizens had good life in the city of Gdansk. He went on to say also, this principle, we need to respect it. We need to share solidarity with the countries of Europe, and mainly with the refugees today. And this has inspired me very much to take part of such a wonderful initiative by the President of Gdansk, to address the refugee global issues. Now, many people believe today the refugees are just part of Greek or Turkey or in the Middle East. It's becoming global, and we all need to deal with it in that way. Our objective in this particular committee is integrating the immigrant and the refugees when they will come to a new country, a new culture, a new language. I myself, at one stage of my life, I was a refugee. I left my country, Syria, a long time ago, fearing for my life. And I appreciate the importance of being active and proactive in integrating these immigrants and to the new society, help them to have a dignity in life.
Thank you very much. But can you tell us a little bit about what are you doing in this committee?
The objective of our committee is, as I just said, is helping immigrants to integrate, offering them a practical help in a way how they could find their way in life.
How many immigrants are in Gdańsk?
It's very difficult to put an exact number on it, but in total, Gdańsk city has always been exposed to a diversity of immigrant people coming. Roughly around 10,000 immigrants in Gdańsk today live. How many refugees can be very difficult to determine at this stage here.
Especially that Poland is closed for refugees. So.
Exactly. So the objective is really to help them in all their aspects of lives, the health, the education, mixing and being able to find a job and to learn the culture, the language, and also to find accommodation. So we are working with them stage by stage in order to make them feel home in every way.
Okay, thank you very much. And maybe now, Marta, about your project. You ask each person about an object, an item that he or she brought with her or of him from Syria, and how they traveled to Lebanon with it. But this was for you, as I understand, just a starting point, because in your description, when you wrote about this project, you're underlining that this actually helped to define something far more important, and you said it was the lost. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of this project, and how long have you been working on it, and when did you actually realize that it is not anymore about the object, but totally more about the lost?
Hi everyone. Actually, before I start, I just want to tell you that on your pen drives you have a catalog for this project in English. There's also a Polish version, but I'm sure not everyone of you speaks Polish, so you can't really use it. So you can read it, and I don't know if you saw the project already or you managed to read a bit of the stories. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I started. I actually started in 2012, so a long time ago, and it was just the beginning of the war in Syria. It wasn't actually yet the real war. Yeah. And I had this very basic idea because I live in Lebanon, and
since when?
Well, since 2008. Okay. I'm like between Poland and Lebanon, and I wanted to. And some of my friends are Syrian, and I wanted to kind of show their stories, you know. And the stories are very different. So this was the basic idea, to just ask them about their personal history and to find a way in which we all can relate to it. And that's why I chose the object idea, because I thought we all have simple, best favorite objects that we like, and what would we take? So this was the basic idea. Then I had to stop the project for some time, and then in 2015 I got back to it, and it was already a completely different situation. Exactly. I mean, the war in Syria was raging. It was a drama. In Lebanon you had already 1.1 million refugees, so it's an unbelievable number actually. So I wanted to get back to this project and to, again, focus on personal stories, because these are most important for me as a photographer and activist, because I don't work in policies, I don't work in...
And the main project was mostly made in 2015 or previously?
No, in 2015. Okay, in 2012 I just had few first stories, and I kind of scanned the area, and to see how the questions go and how people react to it. So the idea was to have very different. I mean, you only see part of the project here. It's a bigger project. There are like 34, I think, stories. Here you have 15. I wanted to have people from different regions, different backgrounds, different ages, to have like and different social class as well. Yeah, because, I mean, of course, the poorest people have the most difficult time, especially in Lebanon, which doesn't have any official camps and doesn't have any official policy towards refugees, which is, I think, very difficult. Imagine it's a 4 million country and you have more than 1 million refugees. So it's an incredible number. So for me, it's also important to show this perspective to Europe, which is panicking about, I'm sorry, but 40,000 people being accepted in Greece, while these people just live in Lebanon, you know, and they don't have any official camps. They live in basements, they live in abandoned buildings, they live in tents on someone's ground, they have to pay rent. I mean, it's really crazy. There, of course, now since it's been like almost 7 years, NGOs managed.
But there are no regular camps, like
no.
No.
I mean, they look like regular camps, but they're not really administered in the same way because there's no refugee status in Lebanon. Actually, it comes back from the Palestinian issue. Because when Palestinians had to leave and a lot of them came to Lebanon, this was the big problem for Lebanese government. I'm not defending them, but I'm explaining the situation why this now is a very difficult situation for them so they don't want to have the repetition of this Palestinian situation where 500,000 people stayed in Lebanon without, any actual status, and now they have the same situation and they don't want to grant the refugee status. Coming back to the process of the project. So during this project, I just started feeling that it's actually more about me in a way, in the sense that I'm trying to talk to people to give them a chance to share their stories, and they actually wanted to share their stories. Like, I didn't have many people that refused to say anything. Like, they really want to share their stories, and they have a lot of things to say. And in the meantime, it just turned out that a lot of them, they couldn't take any objects with them. They couldn't take anything. They were just basically running. They had to leave their houses in a hurry. They could grab their children and just escape. And, they didn't have time for anything. So this was like a big thing for me, that some of those objects they talk about become very symbolic. They're like wounds. Like, there's this one man who's represented here. He talks about wounds on his belly, and this turns into a whole story of his family. And also the second thing that became really important for me in this project was I would call it the mapping of their escape, because I mean, this is very important for me to underline again, is that this exodus, this running away, is a process that lasts for years. And I think somehow we in Europe, we tend to forget about this, because these people who arrive in Europe, they already have sometimes few years of just changing places, moving from one place to another, this temporality, this unknown future, and staying in places and leaving. They have to stay in Syria a lot of times. Like, a lot of my characters, they had few months of traveling in Syria, moving from one place to another, running from one village to another, as long as they had friends, family, places to go to, and then they really try to stay as long as they can in Syria, and then they leave to Lebanon, to Turkey, to Jordan, and then there is no security, no situation that they can actually stay, so that's where they start planning their next move. And the problem is the money is running away, and I mean, it's 7 years, and really they have no resources. I mean, I know stories that people sell their houses in Syria, which were beautiful houses, for $1,000, because they need to do surgery in Lebanon for their child, for example. And Lebanese healthcare is very, very expensive. It's like American system, so they don't have any insurance, they don't have anything. So yeah, this kind of stories. So for now, maybe that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. And Nikos, you're working in the Antigone organization. Could you tell us what kind of activities as an organization do you provide in context of the refugee crisis, and how long do you work for this organization?
Okay, first of all, good morning to everyone. The organization, the whole title of the organization is Antigone Information and Documentation Center on Racism, Ecology, Peace and Non-Violence. Of course, from now on it's Antigone, it's a big title. And through the beginning of the organization in 1993, we have run many different projects based on these values. Right now, a big part of our activities is focusing on the refugee crisis. If we want to talk with numbers about this crisis, we're talking about 62,000 of refugees in Greece. The asylum application from 2017 to 2060 have been increased by 287.5%. In fact, in 2016, there were 51,000 asylum applications in Greece, while in 2015, there were only 13,000. So the number of the refugees, the number of applying for asylum refugees is mainly men. The ages are mainly between 18 to 34. the Syrians, this information comes from the Asylum Service of Greece. The Syrians are recognized as refugees by 99.5%. The people from Afghanistan by 62.8%. And that means a lot in the interaction. The people from Afghanistan are more organized in their livings. For example, it's very easy to do an activity with the people from Afghanistan. They are a community. And the people from Pakistan only by 2.3%. That means that all the immigrants or refugees from Pakistan, they are facing big issues, big problems. So after the first months, when we were trying to cover as many needs as possible, now we're focusing our activities to cover the needs of a specific camp in North Greece, the camp of Diavata. This camp, when it opened last March, it was hosting 2,000 people, from which 800 were children. And most of them were Syrians. Right now, we're talking about only 380 people, from who 160 are children, and from who only 30% are Syrians. So, what we do? First of all, I would like to be a sample of Antigone. We work with non-formal education activities and non-typical education methods. So I will put this orange on the table. Somebody has to ask me what we're going to do with that, please. So what we do, besides giving some clothes, besides providing apartments and psychosocial support, we do activities. Our activities are trying to help the people express themselves in a safe way, to empower themselves, to cultivate their skills, to spend creatively their times, and provide some kind of visibility. Visibility is important not only because we want the refugees to see how Greek society works, we also want the Greek society see how the refugees are working. And we have lived incredible, beautiful moments while we're doing these events. So, very briefly, we do simple activities by which we try to achieve something higher. We do something basic with which we try to do something better. For example, theatrical games, self-defense, chess, dance, swing. For example, in Greece we have a great amount of clothes, but all the refugees might don't like them or they do not wear it somehow. So we help them transform it, adapt it to what they want. Cooking. Somebody asked me why you do cooking. It's something they already know how to cook. But you cannot even imagine how many stories are coming up when you take somebody in a kitchen and tell him or her, today you are going to decide what you're going to eat and you're going to do it the way you want it. That's why we use a psychologist in this activity. IT lessons, photography lessons. We have made exhibitions with very good criticism. Workshops for the Greek society. We don't only do activities for expression, but we also do activities to help them be included in the Greek society. Workshops on human rights, recreational activities for children, and workshops for jewelries and other useful materials. And at the end, we do what we call event of interactions. It's example, we're taking people to festivals, museums, concerts, and we try to help the people see and be seen. So, many of you, when I'm talking to somebody, sometimes I feel that I represent the Greek government. I'm not. And I'm not a lawyer either.
But is your organization taking care of all the camps in the whole Greece or in Thessaloniki?
No, we have run activities in various camps in the North Greece, but right now we are focusing in the camp of Diavata.
Okay.
But another very important part is that we try to do as many activities as we can at the center of the city. So we take people from the camp in the city.
Okay, they're allowed to go outside the camp.
Yes, we have permission to do that. And in addition, besides working with the refugees, it's very important to work with the society. For me, it's very important to be here today because in an opportunity, I believe that half of my job is work with the society. So It's very important to do workshops with the local population. We do workshops in Greek public schools with students, teachers, parents. So it's it's a very big job to be done. And you have to do it with a big whole way, complete way.
What about the orange?
Okay, that's usually a game that we do with volunteers. I'm the trainer of the volunteers of the organization. So I'm allowed to use 2 volunteers for just 1 minute?
Sure.
Okay. So I need 2 brave volunteers. Come on, don't be shy. Come, please. Are you 2 or just 1?
Mam jeszcze pytania do was, ale...
So, working in a crisis is not something very easy, but we always have to keep in mind a way of thinking. Please come next to the orange. It's the desire item. So we have 2 persons at the same distance of the orange. With the same moves, do the same moves, please. You're trying to take the orange from down. Do the same exact moves. Same moves, move your hand. And you have to take it together. You have the same portion of the orange. So, which are the solutions? What may be done? Share the orange. Okay, 50%, 50%. Somebody else? It's exactly the way we should work. Every time you're working on a field, you have to ask, what do you need? Usually they tell me, okay, I will take the orange, you will stay with no orange, I will take the half, or we will both try to ignore the orange like it doesn't exist. But in this case, you have to ask the other, what do you need? Because you might need the pill to make a cake, but I might need the juice because I'm sick and the doctor told me, drink 1 orange juice every day. So every time you're working somehow, somewhere, please ask the others, what do you need? We're not the superheroes, we're not the gods, we do not have all the answers. We just have to provide the information and the support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikos. And as I see, we have only 20 minutes left, and as I already told you, I would love you to join our discussion. So maybe I will say that the floor is yours. Somebody has a question, because I have 1,000 questions to you guys, but I think it will be better if we just open the discussion. So yes, whoever.
I was just reading a recent article in Poland, like the right-wing Polish government is under pressure from the EU to finally begin accepting asylum seekers. So why Poland does not want to accept in refugees? So another suggestion, why don't we invite Assad like dictators on a one-table conference like G20, G7, there are many conferences. So this migration issue is always neglected from the big powers, like Germany is accepting most of refugees nowadays. So you also mentioned that Pakistan is facing a big issue, but according to polls, Pakistan accepted the most refugees from South Asia, especially from Afghanistan. So I don't know from where you have read this. I want to know more details from you. Thank you.
Would you like to? Yes, I mean, the question why we are not welcome refugees, it's really hard question. I mean, we would love to welcome refugees, and this is because of our government who is on the right wings, and it's just, we would love to change the politics, but it's just hard to answer that kind of a question. Why? It's just.
I mean, I think that it's because ethnicity in Poland is like very homogenic. Like we don't have many minorities. Like it's pretty much only like Polish, Polish, Polish. Therefore, like the fear for the other is like easily, enforced. And that's one issue. And about the pressure from European Union, I wish it worked, but I think it won't. I don't know why, but it seems like it slightly works. And with this court mess that was happening during last few days and the veto of the president, it seems like also this threat to remove Poland from voting in the European Union Parliament, which was like some of not taking refugees and the violation of courts and constitution. This could brought those two vetoes yesterday. But in terms of migrant policy in Poland, I believe that it will be a process if things will be changing. And also, I don't believe that that forcing violently, forcing European Union forcing Poland to take refugees will be very wise, because I believe it has to be the mental state of citizens have to shift, and therefore the educational processes and speaking about it and meeting others is very important, because when it will be imposed, I fear that it will be a big backlash from people who are just afraid and.
Okay. Actually, I do not have an answer on that because I'm not a state member. I just transfer the numbers. I do not have an answer. I'm sorry.
Coming back to the gentleman's question about why Poland refusing to accept refugees. Now, while this might seem the norm in the public media mainstream, but the reality is very much different from what the politicians convey messages from time to time. The Polish society is very much open, very much tolerant to foreigners and to refugees, very positive to that. But sadly, we don't see it because we are too far from the reality and the touch. I mean, I personally have been living here in Poland for almost 4 years. I learned the language, I adapted to the culture, and I found the Polish people are the most welcoming people to foreigners, in the way that I feel this is my second home. And I wish the media could convey this message to other people to see. My colleague Carolina mentioned about, yes, we understand there is a concern about refugees. Of course, you do not open your house to everybody on the street. You will be selective who you invite. And every right has a right to do that. But while education is very important, is to let the Polish society be more open to other area in the society in this way. So I agree with you in the principle, this is what it seemed to us, but in reality, the picture is very much different.
Maybe it's also because of the media, since we changed the government on the right side. So I think everything what we see in the television, it's against. And I can even tell from my perspective, because we also have friends that are not Polish in Warsaw, that they also observe that people are reacting totally different right now since 2 years than previously. But so thank you very much for your speech. But I think I would say that it's a little bit different. That unfortunately the nationalistic movement is increasing a little bit in Poland. We need to change it again, but I think the first step is to change the vision in media. How we...
If I'm allowed to say just a small thing, we have the same difficulty in Greece. The truth is that the majority of the people in Greece accepts the refugees. 72% of the people of the citizens of the city of Athens accept the refugee children to go into the public schools. But what's happening? The media wants to sell the drama. So
exactly.
Who is making more noise? Somebody who is going outside of the school and screaming, "You're not allowed it." This is the drama. Please, if you're working with refugees, try to avoid the drama.
And this increases the fear in the society, and this is the problem.
I know that their stories are very sad, but try to stay away from this drama. We don't need it. And also, it's very important to use all our energy to make policies. Even if if I disseminate tons of clothes or food, if I do not make an official policy, I will continue during my life to do the same and the same again and again. Only the official policies have to begin to change the things.
Maybe we can move to another question, if it's okay. Maybe here, like woman, yeah?
Here? Hi, thank you very much. My name is Eleonora. I live in Turkey, and in Turkey, they don't have the refugee status either, and that creates a lot of problems in terms of the implementation as well of the migration deal with the EU. So my question is for Marta. Can you please tell us a little bit more about the situation of refugees in Lebanon in light of this status, and in particular, I mean, what did the government come up with to face this challenge? Because in Turkey, for instance, they now have a different status, like temporary guest or something like that, translated in English, which does allow refugees, does entitle them to have certain rights. I mean, does the government in Lebanon have similar arrangements? Thank you.
I will try to answer as much as I know. I don't know everything, but I think in October 2014, the Lebanese government closed the borders with Syria, because before that, actually, there were like 40,000 people crossing from Syria every month, so imagine this number. And end of 2014, they closed, so the number of refugees is kind of now stable. And also in, I think, 2014-15, the Lebanese government changed some laws for Syrian refugees staying in Lebanon, and it became more difficult to get this kind of temporary residence, I think it's called. I'm not sure how it's called exactly in English. And you get it, I think, for 6 months, and you need a specific sponsorship. So basically you have to have someone from Lebanon who's gonna say that you're either employed by them or you're either under their protection, which, I mean, you can all imagine how difficult it becomes for people to get this kind of sponsorship. I mean, there are a lot of systems like this in Lebanon, for example, for the domestic workers, which is another issue. So this also became a big problem for people, and as well they have to pay for each person, I don't know if it's like $200 per year for this residence or something like this. So imagine if you're a family of 8-10 people, how much money, and these people really, I mean, they don't have money. So this all restricted their movement, because a lot of them became illegal, like completely, they have no papers, nothing. So they're trying not to move a lot. They stay in the area where they have the tent or a apartment or something, wherever they live. And they don't really move. And that also, there's more men being arrested than women on like checkpoints. So for example, that caused more children dropping out of schools, because they have to work in the fields. They do like temporary jobs. They do seasonal like olive picking or vegetable picking. So things like that started happening. Yeah, for now. Yeah. I hope it answers.
Okay, who is next? Maybe can we? Somebody from the center, and then just move.
What I was wondering is, because I've done a lot of work with refugees through smaller organizations, and they have a very clear no photo policy and a policy on not revealing names or identities of refugees because of safety due to them crossing borders illegally, or perhaps having friends or family who are in a critical situation in an unsafe country. And then there's a completely different kind of a clashing aspect of reporting on that issue and in journalism and in taking pictures and photos and reporting this to, for example, Europe. And I was wondering what your guys' opinion is on I guess, like where you kind of have to put the line of keeping people safe as individuals and then letting Europe know and people know what the situation is really like, and like informing others and raising awareness for the refugee crisis.
Can I answer? Me personally, I just take the people's safety first. So with this project, I basically only took people who wanted to be shown, who agreed. There are a few pictures that don't show their faces, so they had the complete freedom to decide what they want to share, and this is how I prefer to work personally.
Yeah, we also asked people if they want to be visible, so we have also some material there with people without faces. They didn't want to show the face.
The United Nations Charter very clear on protecting refugees in every country, and governments are aware of that very much. But sadly, what we need to understand is the scale of the immigration and the refugees in one season only has created some kind of confusion for many policies in some countries. And this can be very difficult to deal with on the basic of the Human Rights Charter of the United Nations. And many refugees fearing from the consequences of moving from country to another, they try to hide. They do not want to reveal themselves, and they become illegal. What we are trying, for example, here is to challenge them to come to the front, declare who they are, and register legally, because they are protected by the United Nations Charter. And this is one of the things we are trying in education to help them to show and to be a legal immigrant or refugees in that space.
Taking photos is a very strange situation. For me, it was very difficult because during the first months while I was working at the camp, there were many, many people who came just for one selfie. To say, look, I'm so kind as a person, I help the others. That's a responsibility. Right now, thankfully, photos are not allowed inside the camp. But I can totally understand the fact that if you're not an acceptance country, it's very difficult in another way to learn their stories. If they want to share their stories, they are free to do it. But we have to protect the children on this situation. It's a very narrow limit.
Okay, another question maybe? Where's the mic? Okay.
Hi. Thank you for your film. It was great, and I think it's really important to see images. But I was wondering, we told yesterday in the workshop about telling engaging stories that media was a message in itself, and I'm not sure that Snapchat is the best because it's like everything, like stories. I don't use Snapchat, but I think you can say everything and putting on the same level refugee life, refugee camp, and like donuts, cats, something. I think it mixes the emotions and it might blur the message, but I don't have any other answer. And maybe the youth people use that more in a different way. So I don't know.
I mean, like, so your doubt is like the Snapchat is not the proper medium because there are like many mixed messages there. But I think that we are like living in such a rhythm kind of like reality that we have like all the time next in our like even Facebook feed, like a campaign for to stop hunger like somewhere, and then we have like boobs of Kim Kardashian, and it's like it's hard to avoid this intersecting of serious social issues and trivial lifestyle messages. And I believe that those spheres can be rearranged, and like the way you use it, like you can use it like how you want it, and it's important to like break the hegemony of, for example, lifestyle and cats. I like cats personally, so I just yeah. So it's and then we were like using like Gazeta Wyborcza account. So it was a specific account where there are no cats and no, I don't know, bikini posing ladies. And so it was like meant to deliver like more like newspaper, you know, stuff. So like people following this, they were like, they knew that they were like following not trivial like informations.
First of all, many newspapers is already using Snapchat to inform about the actual situation, so it was not the first thing that we did. CNN, BBC is already doing this. And the other thing is what Karina already mentioned, that we wanted to grasp attention of the young generation. And you know, Snapchat, it's mostly used by young generation, so this was the best tool actually. You know, we were just talking, have conversation with kids around 14, 15, you know, they were just writing to us, wow, is it really, like, they didn't knew what refugee looks like. So they were like really surprised that refugee is not a terrorist, you know. So it was totally on purpose that we used Snapchat. So, another question, can we still manage?
Hello, I think I have a question for Nikos, because I think it's very important, as you said, to kind of also speak to the public and also educate people with like different kinds of formats, I guess. But I feel like to many events, people only show up that are already interested in this kind of topic, and I feel like there's a very homogeneous crowd around a lot of the time. So I was wondering if you have any ideas how to, I don't know, engage people that might not have that much contact with the topic or maybe are more negative in their perceptions.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I haven't think about another society than the Greek society. So the only suggestion I can make is the one I used. We can separate the time into phases in Greece. The first months of the crisis, refugee crisis was a big issue. So everybody wanted to do something for it. Right now, it's like it was a fashion and it's fading. And that's sad. And that's also represented from the numbers of people contacting us to be volunteers. But I honestly believe that the first step to move yourself, to do something, is empathy. And the only way to present somehow the other is doing workshops and exhibitions. They need to know the stories. They need to understand that what happened may happen to every country. It's a reality that, I know, history repeats itself. We know that history is going to happen again and again and again. Wars, nobody believed that the Second World War will begin, but it began. That's how it goes. We don't know what's going to happen in a few years. So, if you know that everything can happen, you do the first step. And if you can empathize the others, but maybe, to be honest, this is something, a characteristic of personalities. It's not something that we all have. If you empathize more, you're more sensitive to understand. If you do not have it as a characteristic, it's very difficult to be in the position of somebody else. But empathy is very, very important. You have to work on that. You have to understand, for example, doing a festival with the refugees. In Greece, we do some festivals where people from different countries at the same place prepare their traditional foods. Yes, food is a common language. or maybe do a newspaper, but a newspaper open to everyone. We do not want to close the situation. Empathy, a lot of energy, and try to open your work to the society you need to change.
They say the shortest distance between two people is a story. When you share your pain with other people, there will be a sympathetic approach. And I truly believe what we have seen here, the stories done by Marta here, is highlighting the pain which the refugee is going through. And this is very important for us to keep it going, because our mainstream media and the politicians are not interested anymore with that. When you have heard news about Syria recently, for almost 2-3 weeks, none of the Western media has brought any news from Syria, despite the fact the killing, the war is still going on, because there is something else important in that way. But young people today, you have the remarkable responsibility in keeping this momentum going on, so people could identify with the pain of the refugees in that way. You have a remarkable responsibility, as Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. You see, superpower might have a weapon to destroy the earth on many occasions, but you have the responsibility and the ultimate weapon, the education and the social media, and keeping people aware of what's going on today with regard to refugee and the suffering mainly.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I think we need to stop here because we are running out of time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for
excuse me, just 1 minute before we close, because I forgot something.
Go ahead.
Can you please show us the photo?
Oh, okay.
Yes, thank you. So I brought just a photo that I love from Lesbos. Some of you may know it. It's a real sample of solidarity, and it was happening in Lesbos, as I told you. In the photo, you can see 3 old women from the island holding children. The child was crying, and they asked from the mother in the local dialect to feed the little children. So this is what's happening. We have responsibilities on what's happening, and we can be whether in this position or in the opposite. It's up to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So education and empathy is the answer.
Raz. Dzień dobry Państwu. Wiemy, że bez przerwy, ale to jest tak ekscytujące spotkanie. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Dominika Ikonnikow. I'm working in European Solidarity Center. Mam przyjemność dzisiaj poprowadzić dla Państwa spotkanie z osobą, która wzrusza, która porusza i która jest inspiracją do tego, jak można przeżyć każdy kolejny dzień naszego życia. Powitajmy serdecznie panią Henrykę Krzywonos-Strycharską. Pani Henryka Krzywonos-Strycharska, urodzona w Olsztynie, sygnatariuszka porozumień sierpniowych w roku 1980, w stanie wojennym działała w podziemnej Solidarności. Po nakazie opuszczenia Gdańska zamieszkała na wsi pod Olsztynem, a później w Szczecinie. Wstąpiła w związek małżeński z Krzysztofem Strycharskim, z którym przysposobili, wychowali 12 dzieci, byli rodziną zastępczą, a w latach późniejszych prowadzili rodzinny dom dziecka. Obecnie wciąż aktywna działaczka lokalna, aktywistka społeczna, również obecnie posłanka na Sejm 8. kadencji. Między innymi została honorowym obywatelem miasta Gdańska w 2000 roku. W 2009 wybrana Polką dwudziestolecia.
In 2009, she was chosen as a Polish Woman of the last 2 decades by Kongres of Polish Women. In 2012, on request of her children, she was decorated with Order of Smile by International Chancellery. In 2015, she got Badge of Honor for contribution to the protection of child's rights.
Spotkań.
A couple of years ago, on one of the interviews, he said, "It was always the case that many people protested and shouted before important meetings. But later, when it came to raise your voice and to take the floor, it was always me to do that. It was not because that I was raised stress-free, rather raised too stressfully. This is why such children fight for the others, and I decided to fight for the others as well." Mrs. Henryka, why did this famous tram stop? Tell us. Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome from me. Why did this tram stop? This is a very difficult question. This is the surprising question as well for me, because I don't know why this stopped. During this time, terrible things were happening in the Polish shipyard. We knew that we needed to help the shipyard. I was thinking how I could help. Today I can say that when a woman goes for a walk, I think each of you girls, when you go for a meeting with a man, you take the flower and you think, does he love me or not? I was thinking, what would the people say? What would the doctors say? What would the nurses say when I stopped the tram? Well, I decided that we need to help the workers of the shipyard. We need to start from ourselves. It was to my surprise that when I tell them that I stopped the tram, they would shout, they would be angry, whereas they started applause. I wasn't hero then. I have no idea what to do later. But my friends from this city communication company told me what to do later. This is how we started the strike of the public transport in Gdańsk and then later in the whole country. Mrs. Henryka. I was the driver of the tram in the regional transport company. I was the driver of the tram. And then I was only 25 years old. Where did that come from? It was from my heart. That I felt that I need to help people. I didn't participate in any organizations, in any trade unions. I was then a child that felt that I have to fight for my rights and for my family, as well for my family, for my younger sister, which was 8 years younger than me. This is why I stopped the tram. To solidarize with people in the shipyard that were protesting. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, in August 1980, a strike was raised in the Gdansk shipyard, which was aiming for the defense of Anna Walentynowicz and forcing the comeback of her to her work because she was banned from working because of protesting. It was a crucial event for the whole history of Poland. During this day, Henryka Krzywonos was the person who stopped the public transport on that day of the strike. The question is, why does this tram stop on that day? Why did we try to solidarize with the shipyard workers? Would you like to add something? I can add that when I came to the shipyard, it appeared that the workers had actually stopped their strike. Everyone wanted the strike to stop. I remember that before me there were two men walking, one with the moustache, the second one without. What happened, that was Lech Wałęsa, I didn't know that then. The second man was Bogdan Borusewicz, who was the head of one of the houses of parliament in Poland. When they saw me shouting, I was shouting where I came from what company. I was shouting that when they leave, they would betray us. Many smaller companies will try to help the strike as well. Many things were coming into my mind then. Lech Wałęsa came to me and said, "What are we going to do now?" Bogdan Borusewicz turned to him, "So let's strike then." Lech Wałęsa said, so let's strike, let's do the strike of solidarity. That's how the solidarity came from. This is how it started. Mrs. Henryka is a very modest person, so she doesn't mention also another thing. When there was a decision, to stop the strike and people started leaving the shipyard. And Mrs. Henryka, the way she talks, also she doesn't mention the good things she did. When the strike has stopped, there was the thing that surprised everyone. Henryka Krzywonos wasn't the worker of the shipyard then. Anna Walentynowicz and the other two ladies went to the three gates of the shipyard. They were closing the area of the shipyard. And they closed it again, even though the strike had stopped. They tried to influence people to stay in the shipyard and to carry on with the strike. Because this moment that happened is so important. This is so important. This is the so-called 5 minutes that we have to make sense of. And this is another question for you, Ms. Henryka.
Right now, the role of women in this whole solidarity strike is more marginalized. And shipyard was always assumed as the man workplace. Where did the woman take all of the strength and faith from?
Walentynowicz, czy też prowadziły stołówki, czy jeszcze inne rzeczy. Kobiety było cała masa, naprawdę wierzcie mi.
There were really a lot of women.
Poszczególnych tylko działach podwietrznych, to nieprawda.
It's not the truth that there were only 2 or 3 of them. There are movies about women in the shipyard. There were a lot of them. There is a song for a daughter. It's really amazing what was happening there. We all knew what to do. No one told us to do these things.
Robiłyśmy wszystko to, co wiedziałyśmy, że przyniesie korzyść dla naszego strajku.
We were doing the things that we knew would give us benefits for our country.
Zawsze zarabiałyśmy mniej jak mężczyźni, mimo że pracowałyśmy na
We were always earning less than men, despite of the fact that we were in the same workplace.
Mniej zarabiamy,
we still earn less, even though sometimes we are more educated.
To, że my naprawdę umiemy gospodarzyć. Kobieta, która prowadzi swój dom, rodzinę,
although we really can manage, we usually have more children than 2. We can manage the money in the house, and this is the same in the politics, in the economy, in other workplaces. That's how our country works. We women fight for being treated more serious.
Mrs. Henryka, you were sent by a government organization to see how it's working out in the shipyard. The second colleague was somehow lost in the strike group. You somehow managed to get into the shipyard. There was a situation when you had to get the petrol. It was said where the petrol is. Please tell this amazing story of how to get the truck of petrol despite all the men on your way. When I came to the shipyard, it appeared that we are organizing the committee of the strike. The committee of the strike had its duties. There were 3 women in the committee: Anna Walentynowicz, Henryka Klimkowska, and me, Alinka. She was letting people into the shipyard. Anna Walentynowicz was doing different things. When it was needed, she was also letting people into and giving them papers to get into the shipyard. My friends from the transport company, they had a problem with the petrol to get to the shipyard. But other companies that were joining the strike had also many problems with the petrol. In the committee in which I participated, there was a man who was working on the petroleum base. We decided to use our friend to put the name on the car and then take the petrol from the station for free. We were afraid of the consequences that people could have because of that. There was one guy who came to me and told me, "Henia, we do have the petrol, we don't have the truck for it. What do we do?" Then I came up with an idea to go to the managing director and to ask him to borrow us the trucks for petrol. Well, I came to him, I asked, and he answered after my death. Well, I decided, okay. Then we decided to take the truck and we took it to the refinery. And from then on, I was prescribing people the liters of petrol for everyone. Well, we need to limit ourselves because we knew that we will need to pay for it after all at some point, and we had no money as an organization. Well, we had to think really hard. People from the city and people who came for the strike, they were raising money for us. Hence, we could pay for many things later on, and we could pay back our debts that we took. to organize ourselves. There was not much of heroism of that in that. Well, opposing your director is something. Mrs. Henryka, in many times in interviews, in chats, you mention at each time that everyone has his 5 minutes in his life, and it's up to us how we use those 5 minutes. Before the August 1980, you are working in the board of the Port of Gdansk. Among others, you use your skills to write on the typewriting machine the handwritten text into the typed text, and suddenly you get the offer to get to be the tram driver. Where did that decision come from? It wasn't that, after all. When I was 19 years old, I came back from the house of orphanage. There were different times then. There was no work. I couldn't start. When I came from Krakow, I didn't know how to start. I was taking the vocational school, and I needed to leave the school, and I was thrown away from the orphanage. Well, I needed to finish the graduate from the school, the vocational school for office workers. Well, I needed to take care of my daughter, of my sister as well, because she was left there in this pathological orphanage. I knew that I cannot rely only on my previous education. That's why I start to look for a job. I meet the father of my friend, who is the member of the board of the port in Gdansk, and he decided to help me. There are many angels in my life, angels that give me the helpful hand, and he told me, there is some cleaning that needs to be done. Would you take it? Yes, I answered yes. But I told him that I'm attending school, I cannot do that. Okay, he told me that you're gonna do this before you go to school. This is how I started working in the management office. I started doing coffee, tea for them. I was cleaning the offices. At one time, when I was chatting with my friend, I told him that I was attending the vocational school of typewriters. I can get you text which you can start prescribing from handwritten to typed ones. I started typing them on the typing machine. I was doing this overnight to get some more money. And from that time, it was started going well with my sister, financially. And then suddenly we realized that we need more money. And this time that I'm spending on work, I need to also spare with my sister, and I need to spend some time with her. And then another angel came to me, my neighbor, who told me that there is a course for tram drivers, and if I pass this test with distinction, I will probably be able to be the tram driver. Well, I passed this test with distinction. I needed to be 20 years old to attend the course, but I didn't have it, and I still attended, and I became the tram driver, and that's how it started. And now in our questions we go around the circle, and we are getting to another issue, which was at the very beginning. Why did this tram stop?
What you read here, that on those meetings, listen, I think all over the world, there are people who don't let others be devastated. In our workplace, there were bosses who didn't have an idea about the work we are doing, about the work of the trams. No one told us, listen, can you do this? They were really rude, and we didn't have anything to say. We were just doing things they wanted us to do. Everyone was waiting for the boss to tell us what to do. The only one who was a kind of a rebel was me. I wanted to say everything that hurts. When I was a kid, I had to fight for myself, and I wanted to do this.
Też kiedy pan kierownik krzyczał do niej, że nie ma co, trzeba się spieszyć na ten tramwaj i jechać, ja podeszłam do niego i mówię, to proszę bardzo, niech się pan pierwszy jedzie.
There was a time when I went to my boss and I said that he should get to this tram and drive it, not my friend. Our bosses didn't have an idea about the work we were doing.
Że w zrzeszeniu siedzieli ludzie, którzy już nie pracowali w innych zakładach, oni tam dostawali pensje jako ludzie.
In the management there were people who weren't working, and they thought of themselves as better ones, and thought of us as the worst ones. Even though they weren't working, we were. There were people coming to us having no idea about us, and we had to fight because they didn't know anything. I'm very impulsive, and maybe not now because I have kids, but I still think that we should help, and I do it.
We're getting to the point where we can reveal the true character of Henryka. Anna Valentyna, Kazimiera Sztuka, Polish literary critic. She describes Henryka as a good bandit, the lioness, ready to fight for the victims, a woman, a knight. But Mrs. Henryka, you don't agree with that, do you? Well, I don't agree because, as I said, everyone has his 5 minutes. You as well. You too. 5 minutes. You can use it or not. I use my 5 minutes. My decision to stop the tram. This was my 5 minutes. Maybe today I would do something else. I would graduate from a university or do something else which I believe, which I dreamt of. But I stopped the tram, and then there was martial law. Very hard times, work for others that are completely involved me. I realized that I can do something really good for others. Not only me asking for help, but also helping others. And this work made me realize that for many years I can help others. And now when I see that my neighbors or someone else, or children at school that I take care of, need help, I go. And I do that. By the way, I can praise Lech Wałęsa. Well, I can tell you what happened today. Today, I came here to the European Solidarity Center, and Lech Wałęsa, my colleague from the trade union, and there is a Polish saying, be in Rome and don't see the Pope. And that's the same as coming to the Solidarity Center and not seeing Lech Wałęsa. So I came to Lech Wałęsa and I told him that I'm going to Babice, where there's a family where there's 8 children and 9th on its way, and the father is dead. And we need something for the fest that was organized to raise money for them. Lech Wałęsa then thought and went to his secretary and told him, Krzysiu, take something from the office. And this guy has come with the Angel of Freedom, this kind of a statue that Lech Wałęsa got previously. This was something unexpected and something amazing. This is not an ordinary man. This is a man that received a Peace Nobel Prize, but he has a great heart. He is an amazing person. Today he proved by giving this angel. I wouldn't give this angel for such a fest. I would keep this for myself personally, but he gave it for this family. Well, when I stand up, I'll show you the statue. It's described beautifully. He included the letter written by him from his heart to this family, and this is how we are like. It's not only like Wałęsa and me and Bogdan Lis. There are 16 of us. Many of us passed away already, but we are all like this. We can share, and we think this is the most beautiful thing we can give to another person.
In current times, when everything is so unsure, uncertain, is there a place for such heart, for such help? I have to say that I have no fear. I learned to have no fear. If we feel fear, then no one listens to us. We have to be sure about what we do. There is no such possibility not to help. Me and my husband had 12 children. They were from the orphanage. My husband gave them all his surname. But still, they had to work for themselves. That's why I didn't give him my surname. But I taught them one thing: to help others. I taught them solidarity, solidarity with other human. Solidarity is not just a simple word for me. It is really a thing between people. Is there time for it? Of course there is. I'm a member of parliament, and I travel through the whole Poland. I meet people, and I try to help. If not me, then my friends, and we help. It's a pity that you are so far, that you live so far away from here, because you should help too with us.
And now a personal question about you, Mrs. Henryka. You always recollect with huge emotion and esteem your grandmother. Your beloved grandmother always used to say not to burn the bridges behind you, and to live the life in a way that no one will cry because of you. Are those pieces of advice actual, current for today? Can we use it without thinking that we give more than we get? In life, it's more important what we give than what we get. When we give and share with others, someone said that it comes back 4 times as much as you gave, and it works out. I get so much. I get orders, I get statues. I always give it back. I used to sell it to buy bags for children with some kind of equipment. I sold the statues to get the money to save people who lost their hands and legs. Then I don't say this to boast my life. I never do this alone. We never do anything alone. Even when you go to the shop and buy anything, we need the second person. Even the attendant in the shop that gives us things and sells the equipment to us. Of course, I went to the shop in Greece where you can get anything and just put the money on the plate and go away. But for this thing, you need culture and honesty. We don't have such shops. We don't have such problems. Where my grandmother used to always say, remember about one thing. You have to look at your neighbor. Don't look into your garden and don't think about how dirty it is. Go and offer her help. Remember. Never argue with your friends. I used to be very old, very young girl then. I didn't understand what she was saying. She was repeating, don't argue with them. There are three of us. There are three of them. Never say anything bad about them. When you are angry, dig a hole in the garden, say everything you hate into this hole, and then bury it. Remember that they will always come into agreement after all, and you will be the worst one. Remember, never burn the bridges, because at some moment you'll have to come back, and you will not have your way back if you burned them before. And I took this very deeply into it's very deeply into my heart, and I say it always to my children. I always repeat what my grandmother said to me. I always tried to do what I promised. I always tried to work in a way so that nobody cries because of me, but I didn't keep it. In 2010, when there was a catastrophe, when 93 people died, when the Polish plane with Polish president was crashed in Russia, decided that no one has a right to, no one can forget about that. And now I'm saying about the Polish president Lech Kaczyński. During that time, his twin brother wanted to be a president after his death. Well, I probably shouldn't do that, but I probably shouldn't say that, but I always say what I think. I always say directly what I think. Sometimes I do not answer questions that are very uncomfortable to me or what I want to hide before my children. Sometimes when I used to say to my children that you used to be older to understand this, they understood that I will not tell them. When I said something, I always kept that word, and I was always doing what I said. Is it actual today? Yes, I think it's actual nowadays as well. I believe that we always have to work for other people. We always have to be close to others. Never mind if you have the top position or the very bottom one. I always felt that I have to meet with people, with young people, and describe them what happened. And I'm really glad that the youth has shown that can think independently.
I would also like to ask, how would you introduce Henryka Krzywonos of the year 2017? But I think now we know it all. It is the end of our meeting. You are going to have some trips around the shipyard. Thank you for this meeting. You said that we should talk about the history. I live in times when I know this history only from books. What would you say to the people not from Poland about the legacy of Solidarity? It's not like you're talking about it. Those people are still together. Nothing happened there. But there are people who don't know anything about those times. And now they take it for themselves.
czegoś, co inni zauważają, wtedy zaczynamy wymyślać swoją historię. Przed chwilą powiedziałam, że młodzież jest na tyle mądra.
I just said that the youth is wise enough because people my age know how it was. We don't have to tell them anything. But nowadays youth is growing up and they learn about the history.
Występowały osoby, które wtedy miały swój udział w Solidarności. Tymczasem teraz zmieniamy trochę książki i będą właśnie...
And nowadays the books for the kids in the primary school are being changed. And in those books there are people who have no idea about what was happening in those times. And now I meet the youth, I listen to them, and I try to fight it. Believe me that we speak the same language.
Oh, yeah.
And you've been talking a lot about working for the people and giving, and so I was just wondering how you can be so sure that everything you give will come back to you one day.
Odpowiadam na Pana pytanie.
I'll answer to your question. How do I know? Me, as a child, I was raised in a pathological family where my parents drank alcohol in excessive amounts. I knew what it was not to have food, not to have clothes. I know what it means to be beaten by your parents. This is why, by helping others, I got my prize. I have my husband, who has never beaten me, who is my friend. I sometimes laugh, my lover, and everything I could get from God. I have 12 children, they are fantastic. I have friends who have never let me down, even though when I was robbed. I meet with a youth and then I feel young. Sometimes I'm avoiding things which could hit me very hard. Well, I cannot say that my life is fulfilled. When I wake up and I have nothing to do, I cannot imagine such a moment. But there is one thing that wasn't said yet. For some time I was working with a person representing the laws, the rights of children. And that's where I learned that if we stop helping others, it's not about what I get back. It's sufficient to be able to say at some moment that my life was that I lived my life in a way that I cannot regret anything. Thank you very much, Henryka Krzywonos. This is the golden angel statue that was received by Henryka Krzywonos from Lech Wałęsa, which now will be sold for the family that lost a father.